Welcome to InFocus, a closer look at human relations. I'm your host, Bill Bell. Today's show is about Nelson Mandela. I'd like to tell you about July 18th. And why is July 18th important? July 18th is important because it's Nelson Mandela's International Day. And Mr. Mandela was a person that embodied all these things. He embodied service. He embodied community. He embodied friend. He embodied a lot of things. A lot of people know about Mr. Mandela because he was the president of South Africa after apartheid. And he's a person that went from prisoner to president, which is sort of a rare thing. So just a couple of things about him that I think that are interesting. One of the things I'd like to talk to you about is service. His quote is that what counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is the difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of a life we lead. Service to others, Mandela believed, should not be defined as a one-time action. Rather, service should be embraced as a cultural norm. We're sort of ahead of the game here because we do have the cultural norm where we help one another. Mr. Mandela had a few things that he talked about, and a lot of times we think about service to others, we think about people that are in poverty. And we're about helping them, but really service is really about helping us too. It's introducing us to different ideals, different worlds, different cultures. It is nice to live within the comfort of our success and of our family's legacies. But there are a couple of things I want to talk about. And Mr. Mandela said that, you know, he had retired, and in 2015, in 2005, he came out of retirement and he made the following statement. He said, international community has lived up to its promise to work to end global inequality. Mr. Mandela ranked poverty and inequality along two of the world's greatest injustices. His quote, "Overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity. It is the protection of a fundamental human right. It is the right to dignity and a decent life. Like slavery and apartheid, poverty is not natural. It is man-made and can be overcome and eradicated by the actions of other human beings." Long story short, we just need one another. The way we are as a nation, the way we are as a world, really depends on how we treat one another. But one of the things that Mr. Mandela did was he talked about standards for prisoners. A lot of people really don't have sympathy for a person that commits a crime or a person that's imprisoned. They just don't. It doesn't affect them. They don't really think about it. But that poverty, that injustice, that service, sometimes may be linked to a bigger picture. And one of the things Mr. Mandela talked about was the importance of human rights and human rights for prisoners. And it may sound like, well, you know, you get what they give you. But truth of the matter is that we all need to be treated decent. And just because a person is accused of a crime and may be found guilty of that crime and serve prison time doesn't mean they're no less human. So the United Nations launched the revised standard minimum rules for treatment of prisoners, and they dubbed them the Nelson Mandela rules. The Assistant Secretary General in the UN says that it is of critical importance in protecting the human rights of all persons deprived of their liberty as one of the most vulnerable groups of individuals who risk abuse and ill treatment. We hear stories about how people are mistreated in prisons and things of that nature. Mr. Mandela said, "No one truly knows a nation until it has been inside its jails. A nation should not be judged by how it treats its highest citizens, but its lowest ones." The United Nations has made significant progress in the treatment of prisoners. Its goal is to translate these rules into the daily reality for prisoners everywhere. The United Nations stands ready to work together in sending a clear message that the highest walls of prisons are not a bar to the access of justice and, more importantly, human rights. In keeping with service, that some of us, we serve in different ways. Some serve through church, through volunteer organizations, through schools, things of that nature. And some of us work at hospitals. In June of 2017, the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital, one of 4 dedicated children's hospitals on the African continent, received its first patient. Now, there are nearly 450 million children living in Africa, but there are only 4 children's hospitals. Children of Africa have limited access to pediatric care, and without the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital, a countless number of children could die due to the inability to afford health care and access to the facility. It is the hope and the goal of the hospital that they will reduce the mortality rate and the waiting lists for children to be served. The hospital also serves as a research and training center for specialized pediatric care. The Ronald McDonald House provides family accommodations at the hospital for families traveling from far to be with their children. And no child in need of care at the hospital will ever be turned away. So when we talk about service, there's a lot of ways that we can affect change. Mr. Mandela, in remembering Mr. Mandela and honoring Nelson Mandela International Day, education is also important. Mr. Mandela said that education has long been recognized as a route out of poverty for individuals and a way of promoting equality and opportunity. When Mr. Mandela was awarded an honorary doctoral degree from Stellenbosch University in 1996, he said in his acceptance speech, "This occasion is testimony to the fact that we South Africans have struck out on a road of building a joint future, and that we are in the progress of breaking down the divisive bulwarks of the past and building up a new nation, united in all rich diversity." After his death, the challenge remains to use education to change South Africa and the rest of the world. It makes the gift of education an appropriate tribute to a man who continues to teach us about the virtues of selfless service to others. So in summary, I would ask that you consider being of service to someone today. It doesn't have to be a big gesture, it's just a little thing. And we're in service to one another whether we know it or not. But in honoring Mr. Mandela, just think about how you can make the world a better place. We're in a sort of a concerned time right now in this country, and we're all neighbors and we're all friends. And if we just put forth an effort to just be a little better to each other, it can be a positive effect for all involved. Just make sure you just make the right decisions. And thank you for watching this show.